It finally happened after, well, I mean, it hasn't been that many books, but I finally had to DNF something. I just couldn't. I went as far as I could. And then I was like, I'm really just not feeling this. And so I looked at some reviews on Goodreads to see some spoilers because I was just like, does it ever get good? And it's a no from me, dog. That's all I gotta say. This is gonna be a really short, unofficial review because I didn't read the whole book. But I figure you might still want to know some of my thoughts, some of what went on, and have some content warnings because I think there are some triggers in here that need to be addressed and I don't remember them being talked about. Yeah, there's no, at least in the beginning of the book, there's no trigger warnings or anything. And so I'm gonna give you that here. Here's the little that I know about the adult content in this book. Yeah, so as you saw, like one of the main things that you need to be aware of going into this book is that there are a lot of racist characters and there's a lot of racism towards Black people specifically in this book. But overall, like, I mean, so I'll just kind of go down the list. For frightening or intense scenes, I mean, it starts right off the bat with that kind of stuff. So you have a good idea of like, what level does this get to? I mean, you saw the content warnings. I would say that it's moderate for frightening or intense. For violence and gore, I would also put it at moderate. For some people, they might put it at explicit, but I feel like it was a moderate. Sex and nudity, I'm gonna put it at moderate as well. But even then, I mean, it kind of borders on mild. Like, you have two people that are kissing, and then like, I only saw one scene, so if there are other sex scenes or kissing scenes in here, I'm not really aware of them. Yeah, the one that I did see, I mean, it fades to black. It's not too bad. So moderate, but bordering on mild. Different day, different Nicole. I just wanted to add because I totally spaced talking about language before. One complicated thing with this book is there are lots of phrases that are probably in Arabic or Farsi or something like that. And so it's difficult to determine exactly how intense the, the curses or the phrases are. One that stood out to me based off of context is this one. I'm going to assume that's pronounced wallahi. I don't know. But anyway, and it just means like, I swear to God, but at the same time, the way that they used it made it seem like, even though, in English, a lot of English users would probably use this and be like, not think anything of it. It seemed within the context that this is a swear word that would be more aggressive to people who are from that culture. So I included it. I don't know if I'm right on that. That's just my guess. Also, the slurs that I mentioned before, those are also in another language. And so I feel like most American readers or like people outside of those cultures might not even register them as slurs or curse words. So just be aware of that. And it's funny because even though they include those things, even though the author includes like those swear words in there, this book definitely feels more like it's written for a non-Middle Eastern audience. I mean, it just, I don't know. I feel like it's much more tailored to, Western countries' tastes. I mean, the author is extremely knowledgeable in those areas. I think he's a professor of history and stuff. So I don't doubt his knowledge in these areas, but at the same time, if you are from this culture, you might not like this book. And then finally, for the other triggers, that's the biggest thing with this book. And like I said before, racism. Lots of racism. But then also, I kind of want to jump into criticisms and why I DNF'd it. My biggest issue is, like, one, do you know how many times they described what kind of suit the main character was wearing, and her shoes and her tie and the brocade on her vest and her jacket and what it's made out of and where it's from? And I'm just, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if her suit is from New York and she waited 6 months to get it. That doesn't matter to me. Yeah, so that was one thing that drove me nuts. But I mean, for those of you who enjoy, like, really immersing into a setting, this book is like the exact opposite of The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. It's like the total opposite in that, I mean, this is all setting. This is tons of, like, it's very immersive, and it's telling you, like, every little detail about the streets and the people and what everyone's wearing, not just her. Like, I can't tell you how many people where it's described exactly, like, what is the color of the trim on their clothing and I don't even know. It's so much. And then another criticism I have is it kind of ties into the descriptions of the setting, right? So he describes the setting really well, but he doesn't explain it very well. And I think part of the problem is this is a debut novel, but it's not his first work in this series. He's had a bunch of short stories before this. I've read none of those. I have none of that background. And so I was left kind of floundering for a while because I was like, I know I'm in 1912 Egypt, but at the same time, like, and I know that Djinn are more accepted. They're part of the world, kinda, but I feel like there were some key pieces of information missing. And by the time you pick up on them, it's kind of like, well, why didn't you just throw a couple sentences into the beginning and let me know? You know? So that's one thing that I really struggled with. But then also talking about the setting, it felt so mixed. It's so hard to describe the issues I had with this book because they're very, I don't want to be, like, insensitive towards anyone, and I don't want to, like, offend anybody, especially if it's based off of my own ignorance. But one of the things that really bothered me with this book is that they would be so progressive in some ways and then so archaic in others. Like, you know, I mean, so the main character, she's a lesbian, and, you know, both her and her girlfriend very clearly have Muslim backgrounds. And he waffles back and forth so much on whether or not, like, or how well that's accepted in their society. So you're never quite sure. I mean, because it's funny because one of the characters is very, like, she doesn't believe in Islam. She's, like, her family's Islamic, but she's not. But then at the same time, like, and her family seems very aware that their daughter is a free spirit, right? But at the same time, it's like she's, you know, as she's running out the door, she puts on a hijab. And, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's totally fine. But at the same time, if you aren't that religion and your family knows it and you're not in a country like Iran where it's required, why are you trying to keep up appearances, especially if you are a different religion? Because she believes in the ancient gods of Egypt. But by far, my biggest complaint is probably going to come across as very strange to some people, but this book was trying so hard to be feminist that it came across as a caricature of itself. The misandry in this book is ridiculous. Sorry about that. The misandry in this book is out of this world. Every man you meet is like an idiot. I kid you not. Every man that we met was just, oh, he's a bumbling fool, or, oh, you know, he's a snob. And it's just like, why? Why do we have to be so down on men? I know so many good men. I just, this book made me crazy. And it's just, I'm just left like reeling so often that I can't enjoy the story at all. And then there was one point in the book where I was like, there are so many women. It's like got the opposite problem of The Hobbit. You know, one of the criticisms of The Hobbit is that there's no women in it. Like, and it's true. But in this book, it's like the exact opposite. It's like, where are my men at? I don't know. Maybe they got eaten by a crocodile or something. Overall thoughts. I'm sorry that I didn't like this book. I think the most positives that I can say about this book is that the description, there's lots of descriptions. There's lots of really intricate and in-depth descriptions of like the people and what they're wearing and the setting. All of that is really fleshed out. If you pick it up, I hope you enjoy it. I hope that, you know, my issues with this book get resolved later on down the line. And I hope that the issues I was having were just something in the beginning and it was something that the author was setting up to resolve later, and that I was just impatient and didn't give it enough time. But anyway, whatever it is you're picking up, I hope you enjoy it. Happy reading.